Hey everyone, welcome back to the final chapter of our journey down the Mississippi with Huckleberry Finn. If you missed the first parts, be sure to check them out. When we left off, Huck and Jim had just picked up two very interesting characters. These two aren't exactly what they seem. One, an old man, claims he's the Duke of Bridgewater, and the other, a younger con artist, insists he's the rightful king of France, the Dauphin. Huck knows they're frauds from the get-go, but to keep the peace, he plays along. This decision kicks off a series of disastrous and often hilarious scams as they travel from town to town. The Duke and the King are experts at exploiting the good nature of the folks they meet. They stage terrible plays, pretend to be reformed pirates to collect money, and generally make a nuisance of themselves. Their cons escalate until they hear about a wealthy man named Peter Wilkes, who has recently passed away, leaving a large inheritance to his long-lost brothers from England. Seeing a golden opportunity, the Duke and the King decide to impersonate these brothers. They arrive in the Wilkes' town and put on a grand performance of grief. The townspeople and the man's three nieces, Mary Jane, Susan, and Joanna, are completely taken in. The King even fakes a terrible English accent, and it's so convincing to the gullible crowd that they hand over the family's inheritance, a bag containing $6,000 in gold. Huck is disgusted. He's grown fond of the kind-hearted Wilkes sisters and can't stand to see them cheated. So in a moment of true bravery, he decides to act. That night, he sneaks into the conmen's room, steals the bag of gold, and hides it in Peter Wilkes' coffin. He plans to tell Mary Jane the truth later so she can recover the money after he's gone. But things get complicated. The next day, the real Wilkes brothers show up. The town is thrown into chaos, trying to figure out who the real heirs are. To settle the matter, they decide to dig up the coffin to check for a specific tattoo on Peter Wilkes' body. When they open it, they find the missing bag of gold. In the ensuing confusion, Huck makes a break for the raft, overjoyed to be free of the Duke and the King, but his joy is short-lived. Just as he and Jim are pushing off, the two con men catch up and climb back aboard. The journey continues, and the mood on the raft is grim. Finally, the King, in his most despicable act yet, sells Jim for $40, claiming he's a runaway slave from a plantation downriver. Huck is devastated. This is the moment his entire journey has been leading to. He sits by the side of the road and thinks about everything he's been taught, that helping Jim is a sin. He even writes a letter to Miss Watson to tell her where Jim is. But then he remembers their friendship, their shared adventures, and the way Jim has protected him. He looks at the letter, tears it up, and says, "All right then, I'll go to hell." He decides to free Jim, no matter the cost. Huck finds out Jim is being held at the Phelps farm. By a wild coincidence, the Phelpses are none other than Tom Sawyer's aunt and uncle, Sally and Silas, and they're expecting Tom for a visit. When Huck arrives, they mistake him for Tom, and Huck has to play along. The situation gets even crazier when the real Tom Sawyer shows up. Ever the lover of adventure, Tom intercepts his aunt and pretends to be his own younger brother, Sid. Now with Tom in on the secret, Huck thinks freeing Jim will be simple. But Tom has other ideas. He wants to free Jim by the book, meaning he wants to do it with all the elaborate romantic flair he's read about in adventure novels. Instead of just opening the door, Tom devises a ridiculously complicated plan involving secret messages, rope ladders made of sheets, and even trying to get snakes and rats into the cabin with Jim. Huck thinks it's all foolish and cruel to Jim, but he goes along with Tom's charismatic leadership. The great escape finally happens, and it's as chaotic as you'd expect. The boys manage to get Jim out, but Tom is shot in the leg by one of the pursuers. Instead of escaping to freedom, Jim refuses to leave Tom's side and stays to help him, sacrificing his own chance at freedom. This act of selflessness proves Jim's incredible nobility. A doctor is called, and the whole story eventually comes out. When Tom wakes up, he reveals a stunning piece of information. Miss Watson had actually passed away 2 months earlier, and in her will, she had set Jim free. The entire elaborate escape was completely unnecessary. Jim was a free man all along. To make things even more surprising, Tom's Aunt Polly arrives and identifies both Tom and Huck, clearing up all the confusion. And what about Huck's terrifying pap? Jim finally reveals that the dead man they saw in the floating house way back at the beginning of their journey was, in fact, Huck's father. Huck is finally truly free from his past. With the adventure over, Aunt Sally offers to adopt and civilize Huck. But Huck has had enough of society and its rules. He famously concludes that he has to light out for the territory ahead of the rest. Because Aunt Sally, she's going to adopt me and civilize me, and I can't stand it. I've been there before. And so our story ends with Huck ready to embark on a new adventure, forever seeking freedom on his own terms. Thanks for sticking with us through this incredible American classic. If you enjoyed this series, please hit that like button, subscribe for more literary adventures, and let us know in the comments what book you'd like us to explore next. See you soon.